Psst, check out my Patreon.
Oh my gosh, it's literally a miracle. The Gangreen Gang actually has an episode to themselves in the Powerpuff Girls reboot. Holy cow. It only took over 100 episodes for us to get a plot where they're the main antagonists. It's about damn time. Honestly, I can't believe this is happening. The last time we got an episode that featured an OG villain that wasn't him, Mojo, or Princess was all the way back in Viral Spiral from season freaking 1, which featured the Amoeba Boys. And no, I do not count the appearances made by Fuzzy Lumpkins or the Rowdy Rough Boys because those are just a few cameos and not entirely dedicated episodes. Sorry. But yeah, lo and behold, Ace, Grubber, Snake, Big Billy, and Little Arturo are all present and accounted for. Although Snake and Big Billy don't get a single speaking line, and Ace does about 95% of the talking. Kinda lame considering that the two voice actors that play these 5 characters, Jeff Bennett and Tom Kenny, already provide voices for Ace and Arturo in this episode, so the fact that they weren't given any lines for their other characters is just lame and really shows how much missed potential there was. Furthermore, why even use the Gangreen Gang if you're not even going to use the Gangreen Gang? It's just Ace. This episode is 95% Ace, and while yes, he was always the leader in the original series, the other members had their moments to shine, such as Grubber when he transforms his body, or Big Billy when he tries to help out the girls after they save him. Kind of a shock we're seeing these guys at all, but it's not really the same. I wish Ace would have just stayed with gorillas instead. But with that said, let's go ahead and see what this reboot has in store for the Gangreen Gang.
I suppose you're wondering why I called you here.
The episode is titled Hustlecup, and just for some reassurance, I wanted to say that don't worry, this episode has no tie to Musclecup whatsoever outside of them both sounding awfully similar and featuring Buttercup as the main character, even though neither of these words sound like butter. Oh yeah, and thankfully this is the final Buttercup-centric episode according to the reboot. So, this season, not counting my personal changes that I would have made, such as labeling Salamander as a Bubbles episode or Long Skate Home as a Blossom episode, Mojo got 2, although I still theorize that Not So Secret Service was a season 2 episode that got pushed into season 3, Blossom and Bubbles each got 1, and Buttercup got 4. 4 episodes compared to 1, 1, and 2. I cannot be convinced there isn't a bias at play here. Double negatives for the win. Well, let's get this episode over with. So Hustlecup begins with the girls and the professor in the lab where he is choosing to show off his latest invention, a top hat with a stoplight in it. Actually, before I address his invention, I did want to mention that I do think this intro sequence with the downward panning shot is a cool way to start the episode. Just seeing all the gears and coils leading down to the light bulb adds some extra fun and leads us to our main characters rather than the usual stagnant establishing shot. It's different, and I like that. Plus, it's a nifty little visual gag. The professor here has his stop hat, as I'm going to be calling it, because it's a way better name than the bland old traffic hat. The reason the professor is called the girls downstairs is because he's recently invented it for the upcoming Townsville Science Expo and wants to give it a test run.
Bubbles, please throw this plate of laboratory-grade pasta at Buttercup when I say go. Oh. Okay, let's try this again. Bubbles, please throw this plate of laboratory-grade pasta at Buttercup when I say go. Oh. Okay, let's try this again. Bubbles, please throw this plate of laboratory-grade pasta at Buttercup when I say go. Oh.
Man, Bubbles is seriously giving Buttercup a hard time. But yes, the professor has called the girls into the lab to show them what this fascinating invention of his can do. Namely, that it causes things to move at varying speeds depending on the color that's activated on the hat, similar to an actual traffic light. So in essence, the professor just made a better version of Mojo's decelerate from Total Eclipse of the Cart, because unlike that version, which inconsistently slowed down and/or stopped things, this hat lets you control 3 different speeds, green being go, yellow being slowed down, and red being an outright stop. It's also got a better presentation, it's smaller, and more consistent with what it does. Not the most creative device the professor could have made, seeing as this was already done in another episode. However, at the very least, it's not something as asinine as soundless slippers. I'm so glad that never caught on.
Green light!
Man, it really just is not her day, is it? Amazed with the possibilities, Buttercup gets excited to take this hat to school, but the professor strictly forbids it and makes her promise she will not take it there. She promises, although in a promise loophole which we've already seen her pull in other episodes like Somewhere Over the Swing Set and Brain Freeze, she takes it to the town park instead. It is here where she tortures Barry unwillingly by forcing him to constantly shift speeds between that of molasses and an F1 racer.
Here we go! Whee! Yellow light! Wow, this slide is really slow. Green light!
I tell you, that has got to be the longest slide in existence because he traveled a massive distance while going at that higher speed. Although it's interesting because this is the only case in the entire episode where the hat actually causes somebody to speed up faster than a back to normal speed. Buttercup also freezes Jennifer mid-sneeze, which somehow warrants this crowd of kids cheering her on because she's the obvious favorite. What, was Jennifer some sort of school bully? Did nobody like her? What's everyone's deal with hating the girl from Never Been Blissed? Well, the show doesn't care to expand on that because we transition into a later scene in which Ace and his buddies have come up with a plan to hustle Buttercup out of that stop hat. Since Ace had seen Buttercup freeze Jennifer from a distance, he saw this as a prime opportunity to get something cool for himself. They were never a high-stakes villain group in the original, they were always more in tune with the lower-level delinquency that seemed like a chore for the PPGs to deal with rather than an actual threat. And it appears that continues with the smaller-scale situation here, as Buttercup gets challenged to a game of horse. If she wins, she gets Ace's scooter, but if she loses, it's bye-bye to the stop hat. Personally, I don't like what the reboot did to Ace's design, seeing as it removed his wristbands and the hair on his upper lip and obviously made him smoother. It takes away from the whole grunge aesthetic that he was originally designed to have, and Big Billy's hair is also wrong too. The other three seem relatively untouched, but Grubber's shirt is the wrong shade of red. It's always been more of a burgundy or maroon, not this bright pinkish red, but I'm willing to bet that whoever colored in this shirt just looked up Grubber on Google Images and saw the first PNG of him, because this PNG has been around for a long time, but it does not accurately reflect the actual color of his shirt within the show itself. That's always bothered me even before the reboot. It just is kind of telling that the reboot actually saw that color and decided to make his shirt that color instead of looking at the original. So, just based off of her first impressions, Buttercup believes this will be a cinch for her to pull off, so clearly she never learned anything from her experiences all the way back in Air Buttercup because she couldn't make a single basket to save her life.
You haven't hit a shot yet. This'll be a breeze.
Oh, then you won't mind me going first. Chunk it up! You're up.
Next, we get a montage as we see Buttercup and Ace's shots go back and forth with each other, as a scoreboard at the top of the screen keeps a tally of their letters, and pretty soon Buttercup manages to rack up all 5 in a row before Ace can even get 1.
You got whores.
What the fuck am I looking at? Well, sure enough, Ace manages to completely demolish her, and Buttercup loses the stop hat thanks to her assumptions that Ace would be terrible at the game. That's hustling for ya. She returns home empty-handed, and her sisters immediately get on her case for losing the invention just a mere days before the professor has to go present it at his science convention. But after some persuasion, Blossom and Bubbles fly on out to the park to help her win it back without telling their dad that she lost it. This second trip to the park also opens with the gang tormenting the same pizza delivery guy we saw in the third part of Small World, so there's a nifty connection for you. Following the same song and dance number as before, Blossom challenges Ace to another game, and she bets her protractor and one of Bubbles' pigtails in exchange for the stop hat and the scooter. A 2-for-2 deal. Luckily, unlike Buttercup, who tries to brute force her way to victory, Blossom has a more calculated approach, as she uses her clear knowledge of math and physics. Yeah, that's right, math. The same subject that Buttercup is somehow better than her at. Sorry, I brought it up again. I said I would let it go. As she uses her knowledge of math to calculate the proper angle and velocity for her to throw the ball to score. Unfortunately for her, that doesn't work out too well, because next we get another montage of Blossom missing all 5 of her shots too.
You got whores.
Okay, seriously? You're just gonna do the same joke every time somebody loses? Unsurprisingly, the Gangreen Gang have another plan up their sleeve for these situations where they actually face off against a competent basketball player, and they interfere with all of Blossom's shots. Now, why her sisters don't do the same thing to Ace or call them out for this, or even try to stop Billy, Snake, Grubber, and Arturo is beyond me, because that really is something that they should be doing right now. Call them out, call out their foul play, and demand the points not count. Worst comes to worst, just beat them up for cheating so Ace's lackeys can't interfere. I mean, there's really nothing stopping the girls from just punching him in the face and taking the hat back. But even after they fail to win against Ace, they do attempt to stop the gang by picking up the entire court and crushing them with it. Although that doesn't work because they gave Ace ample enough time to put the stop hat on, which leads to their demise.
I can't move!
Green light.
I can say I saw that one coming, but apparently the girls did not. Some unspecified amount of time later, Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup are back at their home once again and come clean to the professor about how Buttercup lost the stop hat. Something I didn't mention earlier. There's this running gag going on with Buttercup where the girls say her losing the stop hat is the most irresponsible thing she's ever done.
This is the most irresponsible thing you've ever done! What about the time she managed to join the Pruna Cycling Club?
So I guess that her losing the stop hat to Ace is more irresponsible than letting her sisters get captured because she was more interested in finding a bottle cap, losing Octi, Bubbles' most treasured possession, neglecting her sisters' illnesses and letting them turn into giant hogs because she was more interested in watching television, trading her sisters' souls in for a guitar because she selfishly wanted to become a rock star, letting her sisters get captured because she was more interested in becoming uncomfortably muscular, baking her sisters' journey into her hair to stop a society of lice from drilling into her brain because she refused to cut it, tampering with her sister's code and causing the artificial intelligence to take over their house and try to kill them, or disguising herself as a new villain and instigating a bunch of other villains into attacking them because she wanted to have an excuse to beat people up for her own self-enjoyment. Yeah, okay, Reboot. Sure, clearly losing a bet is more severe than all of that. Well, the professor says the only way to solve their problem is to get that stop hat back, so he heads back to the park with the girls again so he can challenge Ace to a game of horse himself.
Here, take a practice shot. Well, that ain't coming back.
Oh geez, this is bound to go well. Dude literally refers to the court as a basketball field before he and the girls even leave their home, by the way. Like, the reboot really wants to emphasize that the professor supposedly doesn't know anything about sports and it is impossible to miss. But as I'm sure you can guess, this also ends in disaster because next we get another montage, which isn't really much of a montage at all because it's just cutting closer and closer to the professor's face as all 5 letters appear on screen. We don't even see him miss. The show literally just assigns him the letters because I guess their match wasn't important enough.
You got horse.
Oh my fucking god, would you stop with that already? Alright, I'm going to explain why this gag doesn't work on a more technical level. This horse gag doesn't really connect with the audience because it lacks context outside of it being an image of the animal that the game is named after. What does this image actually communicate to us? If this is meant to be a joke, then the punchline didn't have any build-up. It's random and spontaneous, which by itself doesn't incite a humorous reaction. The funny face is goofy looking, sure, but what does a horse making a silly face actually have to do with Buttercup failing to make a basket? I could see an argument being made where this is meant to illuminate the stupidity of Buttercup for getting herself into this situation, but Buttercup's following reaction contradicts this emotion with high-stress anxiety. I am going to argue that this is a case of the Kuleshov effect being used incompetently because it is inciting a contradictory emotion out of the audience compared to what is present before and after this image, and it's not done with that purpose of contradiction. For those who don't know, the Kuleshov effect is a film and cinema term that is applied to situations where an image is given new meaning based upon the following image that precedes it. You could take the same stationary image of a person just looking directly into the camera, and based on the following image that comes after that person, despite the fact that it's the same exact footage, it could incite a different emotion out of the viewer. This is a very prominent technique that has been used in cinema for decades. Now, applying that idea to Hustlecup, Buttercup just lost this game to Ace and thus the bet, correct? This means she loses her father's hat that he was going to enter in an upcoming science competition. So then why wouldn't the show incite feelings of distress and defeat into the audience to match the character's feelings on screen? How is Buttercup losing this game supposed to be an elated moment of silly laughter when she just lost her father's invention? It's not like she lost the device in a comedic way either. She literally just missed all 5 of her basketball shots. It's very straightforward. If anything, this moment should be inciting a feeling of, oh shit, I messed up. Fear, stress, worry. These are the sensations that should be communicated to the audience now that Buttercup has lost her dad's prized possession to the antagonist. Why would somebody find joy in a situation like this? We should be going, uh-oh, now what's Buttercup gonna do? The juxtaposition of this horse's face with a goofy look, glasses, and voiceover is disorienting and confusing. I'm being led to feel one emotion and then contrasted spontaneously with another, and the episode does this 3 times. I personally either wouldn't have included the image at all, or instead changed it to Buttercup reacting in a dramatic way that could have a pinch of humor in it. The fact that it is a stock image of a real-life photo in an animated cartoon is also disorienting in this context because it's not used in an effective manner. It is solely present to shock the viewer with a sudden, unexpected change that doesn't actually progress the story or connect the viewer to what they're seeing on screen. It does the opposite by blatantly disconnecting us. What a surprise! The idiot dad character once again proves he's an idiot dad character. Or does he? Turns out he actually challenges Ace to one more game with everything on the line. If he wins, the Utoniums get all of their stuff back, but if Ace wins, then he and the girls have to move out of Townsville forever and never return, providing a prime opportunity for crime to flourish. Most would see this as the professor doing the most incompetent thing he could possibly do, but what I see is the obvious fact that the professor is going to turn the tables and hustle Ace out of all of his stuff because of course the reboot is that predictable.
Still got it.
Sure enough, the reboot is that predictable. Ace agrees and even gives the professor the first shot out of pity, and next we get a montage, again, of Ace losing. Well, looks like the hustler has become the hustled as the professor whips out his classic b-ball gear and demolishes Ace without even breaking a sweat. This is clearly done for laughs, but honestly I'm just glad he's a dad sticking up for his children because that feels more in line with his character. I can do without the goofy sweat gear, and this honestly comes out of nowhere because when has the professor ever had anything to do with basketball? Never. And that combined with the fact that he's drawn with, you guessed it, overly exaggerated muscles ruins a lot of the significance for me. I'm glad he stuck up for his kids, but the excess is just that, excess. And this scene would have been better without it. Also, I just want to point out a blatant inconsistency. The girls tie up Ace's gang during this, why they didn't do this the first time I don't know, with ordinary rope. But in the episode The Bubble Sitters Club, they are shown to escape with ease when Bubbles turns her back on them for 5 seconds. They've been established to just get out of this like it's nothing, so what makes this situation any different? Chalk up another neglectful continuity error for the Powerpuff reboot. Thus, Blossom gets her protractor, Bubbles gets her pigtails, no idea how that works, and the professor gets his stop hat and Ace's scooter. As for Buttercup, she gets grounded, and that's what she deserves, so good riddance I say. It's about time she experiences some comeuppance for her wrongdoing. Also, fuck this show and its obsession with muscles, it's disturbing. And that's Hustlecup in a nutshell. Honestly, I mostly like it. Glad to see the Gangreen Gang aren't complete idiots. Ace is still cunning and up to his old tricks, although, as I mentioned earlier on in the review, I do wish the other gang members had more to do here. Snake and Billy especially just feel like they're there out of obligation, whereas Arturo and Grubber get a few lines. Kind of. I do think it's a bit foolish for the professor to put the entire city of Townsville at stake over a game of horse at the park, but then again, considering the way these citizens act, I don't think they really deserve the heroes they have anyways. This is also the final official Buttercup episode of the season, as I had mentioned at the beginning of the review, which marks the end to all character exclusive title cards. by the Reboot's judgment. I, on the other hand, disagree. I think there are a few more that deserve to be credited towards specific characters. But from here on out, everything's mixed. Although it's been that way for most of Season 3 anyway, so really this is already the norm at this point. Hustlecup is meh, but I'm glad some OG characters were done decent justice, unlike Fuzzy, who shows up in the background to do nothing every once in a blue moon. But that about does it for this review, so let's end things off on a positive note and watch Buttercup get slapped in the face with spaghetti a few more times.
Please throw this plate of laboratory-grade pasta at Buttercup when I say go. Oh. Green light!